Good afternoon, boys and girls, and parents that are watching in at Aunt Pat's Story Time. I decided, along with um, Minister Shay and Pastor Cheryl, to do story time for the boys and girls while they're home during this season. One of the things about being a teacher is that I love to read and I love to tell stories. Some of the stories that I'll be reading to you during this time will be fiction and nonfiction stories, meaning some will be true stories and some will be fairy tales or tales that were made up. But one of the things that I love to do more than anything in this world is to laugh. So many of the stories that I'm going to be sharing with you will be stories that will make you laugh, and we're just going to have fun learning and reading stories. Now, the story that I'm going to read to you today has a story that was read when I was a little girl. It's the story of the three little pigs. Many of you have heard that story of the three little pigs, where one of the pigs built his house of straw and the wolf blew it down. The second little pig built his house of sticks. The little pig blew it down, and they ran to their brother's house, who built his house of bricks, and he couldn't blow that one down. But today I'm going to read a story that was written by the wolf. The wolf said that the reporter that wrote the other story did not tell the truth about him. So he gave his story to another reporter, and the story today that I'm going to read you is entitled The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, told by a wolf. It was told to a reporter named John Shasuska, and it was illustrated by Lane Smith. Let's listen to the story of the Three Little Pigs told by the wolf. Everybody knows the story of the Three Little Pigs, or at least they think they do. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Nobody knows the real story, because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. This is the wolf talking. He's saying nobody has ever heard his side of the story. I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how this whole big bad wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet. Hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies, sheep, and pigs. Let's listen to that again. Hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. Here's Mr. Wolf over here telling his story to the reporter. And he said he didn't know how this story came about. He said he don't know why they called him big and bad. But he tried to play it off by saying, because we eat hamburgers, people probably would call us big and bad also. Let's look and see if his story is true. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. So you find here that he drew on a blackboard his nose, a sneeze, and an empty cup, meaning he needed some sugar. And he's saying this is the real story, why he went to the pig's house. Let's see if this was the real story. Way back in Once Upon a Time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneezing cold. I ran out of sugar. Let's look at the story. He's holding up an empty bag of sugar and a cup in his hand. Now let's look and see what's in his bowl. In his bowl, you can see rabbit ears and the bottom of a rabbit. He had a rabbit in the bowl, a dead rabbit, And he had another piece of meat and the feet of another animal in there. Now, I make cakes all the time, and you do not use meat to make a cake. You use flour, sugar, milk, eggs, and other ingredients. He had a cup, and look what else he has on his table. He has salt and pepper. You don't put salt and pepper in a cake. He had milk over here and eggs. But let's see if he was really going to the little pig's house. Was it really about a sneeze and sugar? So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now, this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in his right mind will build a house of straw? Here we see the wolf walking down the street, throwing up the cup that he claimed he's going to get some sugar from his neighbor's house. Let's listen to the details and see if he's really going to the little pig's house to get a cup of sugar. So, of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. He must have knocked awfully hard for the door to fall in. I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in? No answer. I was just about to go home without the cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. That's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed and I snuffed. Here is the wolf looking in the little pig's house after he knocked on the door, and the door fell in. Here it is when he sneezed, and he snuffed, and he puffed, and whatever he did. You can see the whirlwind of the wind going around. Let's see what happens next. And I sneezed a great sneeze. Here it is. He sneezed so hard. Oh my goodness, all the juice came out of his nose. He sneezed so hard, his glasses fell off. He sneezed so hard, his bow tie fell off. And the house of straw fell down. You can see the straw all over the place. And in this corner, you can see the little pig's bottom. Let's see what happens next. And you know what? That whole darn straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner lying there in the straw, so I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. It amazed me that he called the little pig a perfectly good ham dinner. He didn't think that the little pig was lying dead as a doorknob. He said, I can't leave this here. So what did he do? He ate it up. He also said, maybe that's why they called him big and bad. He said if you ate something, if it was a cheeseburger, they would call you big and bad. Let's see if he gets a cup of sugar. I was feeling a little better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar. So I went to the next neighbor's house. This was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not much. He had built his house of sticks. I rang the doorbell on the stick house. Nobody answered. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? He yelled back, go away, Wolf. You can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin chin. Here you will see a picture of the house of sticks. And then you'll see the little pig on the inside shaving the hairs off his chinny chin chin. He asked him not to come in. I had just grabbed the doorknob. I wonder what happened. When I felt another sneeze coming on, I huffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not going to believe it, but this guy's house fell down just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was a second little pig, dead as a doornail, Wolf's honor. Here we find the picture of him huffing and snuffing. And the second little pig's house of stick fell down. But here we see the little pig in the middle of the floor. Now, you know food will spoil if you just leave it out open. So I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little better. And I still didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. Now remember, he was making the cake out of rabbit, another piece of meat, and another animal's foot. And he called himself making a birthday cake for Granny. So I went to the next house. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house of bricks. Now remember in the other story, he huffed and he puffed and that house didn't go down. Let's see what happens. I knocked on the brick house. No answer. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what that rude little porker answered? Get out of here, Wolf. Don't bother me again. So that lets me know that he had come to his house bothering him before. So here he walks to the house built of bricks. Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't give me either one little cup for my dear sweet old granny's birthday cake. What a pig. I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I wonder what he's going to do since he felt the cold coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed once again. Then the third little pig yelled, and your old granny can sit on a pin. Oh, my goodness. Here we see the wolf getting ready to sneeze again, and the little pig who lived in a house of brick looking out the window at him. Let's see if he gets this cup of sugar. Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fella, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. When the cops drove up, of course, I was trying to break down the pig's door, and the whole time I was huffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene. Do you think the third little pig's house fell in? Do you think his house fell in like his other brothers? He was carrying on, but the house did not fall down. The rest, as they say, is history. The news reporter found out about the two little pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very interesting. It doesn't sound very true to me. So they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down, and they made me the big bad wolf. That is the real story. I was framed. So here we see the newspaper calling him the big bad wolf. Here we see him in jail because he had clothes that they wear in jail. Evidently, all of that going on outside of the third little pig's house, the third little pig called the police. But maybe you can loan me a cup of sugar. He's in jail asking the guard, who is a pig, to lend him a cup of sugar. The end. boys and girls, do you really believe that the wolf in this story was making a cake? Do you really believe that he wanted a cup of sugar? Talk about the clues that we saw in this story with your parents, and you will know whether this big bad wolf was telling the truth